Good evening and welcome to the evening of day 13. So it is the last evening that we're going to be together feeding our starters, but don't worry, I'll still be here helping you along the way. And you can ask me questions anytime. Just contact me on my website or on my Instagram. But don't worry, I won't abandon you. I'll still be here for you. And we can all support each other along our journey. I'll still be here when you've got your gluten-free starter or regular starter all ready to go. I'll be here to help you along with the next steps to making your loaf. And you're going to just love it. I'm so excited for you. And I just hope you've enjoyed this journey so far and that you've had ease in this journey along making your sourdough starter. My goal in this series was to share with you everything that I have learned to hopefully impart the knowledge that you need to make your own decisions when it comes to your sourdough starter and what it needs for your particular environment. So I sure hope that we've done that, and I hope you feel confident. And let's move on and take a look at our sourdough starters. So here we are, our sorghum sourdough starter. You can see it has definitely, I bumped this elastic big time. It has definitely had its peak rise and has fallen way back down. So if I'm not worried about this though, that just means that it's now an old starter and it needs to be fed. That's totally normal and acceptable and what we want to see. And Betty is as well, rose up and came down. Bob rose, you can see, way up. So at 1:30, it was here, and that was whereas the line is over there, but it rose to here, and that was what we thought was the peak. And then, because it started to fall back down, and then it rose back up and gave a second kick into its life. So it did have that second boost, which is totally normal. You can see in the back there how much higher it went. So that's totally normal, but you want to, if you're going to bake with it starting tomorrow, because it will be ready, and it probably is ready today, to be honest, but I always wait for the 14 days for it to be as mature as I can. But when you want to bake is at that first peak rise. That's when the yeast and bacteria are at their peak activity. And that's when you want to create your leavens. So let's take a look and see what they look like from the top. So we have our sorghum starter, Susie, our brown rice starter, Betty, and our regular starter, Bob. So here is our sorghum starter. And now we're going to look at, in comparison to when it had its beautiful domed, pillowy effect earlier today, you could see that it was like that analogy I gave of the hot air balloon. When the hot air balloon has the air in it, it still has that pillowy look. So it's got a little bit of ridges and valleys, but they're not deep. It's just like a pillow, like nice and soft like a pillow. And that's because that carbon dioxide is being released by the microorganisms and pushing it up and making it all nice and poofy. And you get that nice domed effect. Here you can see there's no longer a dome. You can see where it has risen to and fallen down. And you can see that from the side as well. You can see its consistency and you can see all those ridges and valleys. They're very deep ridges and valleys. So this is definitely considered now an old starter. Now, most of the bacteria and yeast are at the end of their life cycle and they're starting to die off. So it needs to be fed. So let's go ahead and feed our starter. So tonight we're going to feed our starter in preparation to actually make our leaven tomorrow. So what we need to do is feed our starter in a ratio that's going to allow us to have a very low base acidity. So this is what we learned from the talk with Hendrik from the bread code. We learned about how having our starter have a lower base acidity would help improve our ability to get a rise out of our dough, so that we have a larger window in which we can ferment our dough and we don't have to be perfect. So we're going to feed our starter in a ratio of 1 to 5 to 6, starter to flour to water. And in that way, it never gets a chance to get acidic. So we're going to discard all but 20 grams of our starter and feed it 100 grams of flour and 120 grams of water. And in this way, it's similar to what we did when I traveled home from my family's cottage. We fed a double feed. So it may take quite some time before our starter is actually ready to be made into the leaven. However, our starter has had some time since then, and the colony has had some time to become established. So it may take a little less time than we think, but most likely we won't be mixing our leaven until later in the day. We will just keep an eye on our starter and try and create our leaven when our starter is at its peak activity. However, you don't have to worry about trying to find the exact peak activity or whether or not it's going to peak during the night or while you're at work or something like that. Because if it has already peaked and fallen, all you have to do is give it a small snack and it will be back to its peak within the hour. So we will talk about this tomorrow morning as we won't be feeding our starters. I'll do a quick talk on exactly what to do, and I'm going to show you how we're going to be taking care of our starter once they go into the refrigerator. But for tonight, make sure to leave your starter at room temperature like we always have been. And I'm going to show you all of that tomorrow when we make our leaven. We will take some of it out and we will feed our starter to be putting it into the refrigerator. So not to worry about the details now. We will deal with all of that tomorrow. So place your starter in a snuggly spot and I will see you in the morning. I hope you have a wonderful, deep, peaceful sleep. Good night.